All right, so you've probably been wondering, how do I change my kitchen outlets? This is a GFCI outlet, which means that it's got a built-in breaker that allows it to shut off if it gets wet, for example, which is a safety feature, so you don't get electrocuted. So you got to buy a replacement outlet. This came from Home Depot. It's about $17. And then you got to go to your main electrical panel in the house, and you got to flip off breakers, or maybe you know the breaker layout. You find the breaker that turns off this circuit so that you don't work with the power on. So that's obviously dangerous and get electrocuted. So I've already gone and figured out the right breaker. I've turned it off, so now there's no power here, and this has a convenient light on it that will show you whether it's got power, and right now the light's off, so we know it doesn't have any power. We can also plug something into it and verify that there's no power. So obviously this is easy. You just start by pulling off the plate here, straight screwdriver. These are really short screws. You just pull off the plate. We're going to reuse this because it's perfectly fine. So let me take the screws off completely. And once we've done that, plate comes right off. Save the screws, don't lose the screws. Okay, so here you have your outlet. You're always going to have two screws, top and bottom. This screws into the electrical box, which is the plastic box behind the wall. And so the screws come out, and we'll be able to pull this right out. You can use a drill. You got to be careful though, because the threading is plastic usually, and you don't want to strip the threading, because then you'll be in bad shape to be able to get the outlet back in. So we're just going to be careful here, but we're going to use the drill driver to pull these screws out. And once we've done that, okay, these are actually drywall screws. So this is not the right type of screw. That might mean that this outlet's been changed before, and the previous owner might have stripped the plastic actually threading. So you don't typically see those screws, but I've used these in the past because they have slightly wider threading, so they might be able to make that hole work in the event that it's stripped. All right, so what we can do is we can pull the top and bottom off. All right, so now you see the wiring behind it. Usually you're going to find in these, because there's multiple of these outlets on a single circuit. So usually if you look in there, you're going to see some connections. You can leave those alone for the purposes of changing the outlet. That's basically the supply of power that's going to go to the rest of the all the outlets on the circuit. And so all we're going to do is we're going to change this. It looks like the way that this is wired is with a load, meaning that there are other outlets that are using the GFCI breaker functionality of this outlet, basically. And the way you can tell that is that there's actually two sets of wires going in and out. So the ones that are going out are on the load terminals, which means that essentially there's like a downstream outlet that is powered off of this and using the same GFCI functionality. All right, so we're just going to hook it all up the exact same way that it's hooked up now. So we just have to try to remember that. So we're going to take a look at the back of this outlet and see which side is which. Actually, what I'm going to do is take this off, and we'll look at the back of the outlet when we do that. So again, I would definitely recommend using a hand tool for this, but this is a little bit faster. So we can go ahead and unscrew this. Yeah, you got to be careful with these. You don't want to over tighten, but this is an outlet we're going to throw away, so it doesn't really matter. All right, so we just have to try to keep the wires in the same orientation so that we can know where they go to. All right, so we take that out. All right, so pull these out, and these look good. There's also a ground wire, so the outlet is grounded. And we can do the same thing, take off the ground screw. Okay, so now we've taken out the old outlet, and we know the orientation. So we're gonna take a look at this, and we can see on the back of this, you can see this is marked lines. So this is the line, and this is the load. So that means that the power is coming in from the panel here, and then there's an additional outlet or some downstream component that's hooked up to the load here. So the power is coming in here, going through the GFCI breaker, and then going out this load. Okay, so we're gonna hook it up. We're gonna hook up the new one the exact same way. So we have our new outlet here. Okay, so brand new outlet. So this is actually in the opposite orientation. It's a good thing we looked at this. And this is taped off because usually, and this is probably because people hook these up the wrong way and they return the outlet thinking it's defective. because this will not power the outlet. This is the load. So that's why they tape it off, because load is not as common, but it's used in some cases if you want to borrow the GFCI capability. All right, so yeah, we're gonna take this tape off because we are actually gonna use the load terminals. All right, so we're gonna take that off, and you can see it says load, okay? In fact, so this is the right orientation, but this outlet is actually opposite because this says line here, and then this says line here, this says load here, this is load here, so it's actually reversed. So we're gonna be mindful of that when we hook it back up. We're gonna switch the orientation of the top and bottom wires. All right, so we're gonna start with the ground, okay? So this is the ground wire, it's bare. You always know the ground wire because it's bare. Okay, so we got the ground in here. All we gotta do is just tighten this up so that it grips the wire in place. Okay, so that's done. All right, so we got the ground in. Now we're gonna take a look at these. We're gonna reverse the orientation. So these are, they were previously connected to the load, and so they're gonna be hooked up at the bottom. So we're gonna kind of reorient these wires. So these are our load wires. So we're gonna reorient them and make sure that we get them like this, okay. All right, okay, and now this is our new line, right? No, this is the load, yeah, that's right, this is the load. So we're going to loosen these up. Yeah, these come tightened because, again, they're not necessarily common. People don't always use the load terminals on these. So on the outlet, it's color coded, so you can see the silver side is always going to be your common wire, your white wire, your neutral. This is going to be your hot wire, your black. So you can tell because it's like a bronze color as opposed to the silver. So we're just going to stick it in one of these holes, doesn't matter which. Make sure it goes behind the plate there, and then we're just going to tighten it up. And these screws are going to hold the wires in place, and they also make electrical contact with the plates. All right, same thing on this side. Just going to, shoot this through the hole and tighten it up. Okay, something like that. That's good. All right, tighten that up. Okay, and now let's do the line, which is the top wires here. And so we're going to put the white wire on this side. And just push it in place, tighten it up. Okay, and then the hot wire on this side. Okay, so I just make sure that the plate is out and then stick it in like that. Simple. Just make sure it goes in enough. It just has to make contact and generally just not fall out. You also don't really want too much of the copper part of the wire to be exposed because it can, if you push it back into the outlet and it contacts something, it could short circuit, and that would be no good. Your breaker would probably pop immediately or worse. Okay, so we have the outlet all hooked up. Now all we have to do is push it back. So we're gonna kind of bend these wires so that, and they should bend kind of on their own as we push it back. We just have to kind of make sure we, continuously apply pressure just like that. And what I like to do is kind of angle it so that we can get it all the way back in. We're gonna try to use the screws on here. We had some drywall screws there before, which we might actually have to use because of the threading. But we'll try these first, and if it works, it works. Okay, so we've kind of bent the wires a bit so that we can push this in, tighten this up, and that seems to be catching relatively well. And same on the bottom here. Okay, this one not so much. So see how that's moving like that? You don't want that, that's not good. So we're gonna go back to the screws that they had, which obviously are there for a reason. We're gonna use the drill driver. Okay, so change the direction, and we're just going to put this in. There we go. And slowly push it in. Okay, just like that. You don't have to over tighten it, just enough for it to kind of sit there firmly, but you don't want to like start pulling the box out of the wall. Okay. All right, so that's in. This top screw seems to be gripping well. All right, so we also don't want to bend this too much, but you want it to be nice and firm so that, if you go to push it, push on it, it's pretty much in place nicely. Maybe we'll tighten this a little bit. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so that looks pretty good. You also want it to be nice and straight up and down. That looks good enough. All right, now we're just gonna put the plate on. Usually I like to test it before putting the plate on, just to make sure it works. But we are very confident today that we hooked it up correctly. Okay, this can be a little tricky to get it into the hole. Doesn't want to go in. That's not it. Yeah, this is can be a little tricky. This plate's a little old. The new plates usually have like a little plastic cross inside the hole that helps hold the screw in place while you're tightening it, to avoid this problem of having to hold everything, which we are doing here. All right, let's go. I think we got it. Yep, looks good. Yeah, you don't want to tighten these too much because it'll bend and sometimes it can break the plate. Usually I like to orient the direction of the screw in a vertical line, and that's kind of a nice finishing touch. This one is stuck actually. It's against the backsplash tile. That looks pretty good. I mean, we can maybe push it over a little bit, just like that. Yep, so that it looks nice and center. Okay, that looks good. Now let's turn on the breaker and we can test it and see if it works. Okay, so we got our power hooked up and we should be able to hook up something to this outlet and make sure it works. So these two buttons, you have test and you have reset. Test is basically testing the breaker. So, when it usually comes pushed in, and then you have to hit reset to basically engage the breaker and enable it. You can see that light, that's nice, that's a good sign. The test button is simulating what would happen if there's a ground fault, which causes the breaker to shut off, which is the safety feature. Okay, so we're going to test this out. I mean, it should work because the light's on. We can see, we plug it in, and we do have light, so we can make a panini, and we're good to go.